Hey guys, today I want to do a video on are your standards too high for the Philippines? You know, a lot of guys that come in here, they come in here and the first thing they do is start complaining. I know we've talked about this before and I want to do a whole video on this today because it's kind of important because I see a lot of guys come in here. Some of them can adjust. Some of them, the other expats will tip them off that, you know, hey, you got to kind of tone it down a little bit and come to reality that this is where you're going to live if you're going to stay here, and you got to put up with a certain amount of things, and that's the truth of the matter. But I've seen guys come in here and you're living in a third world country or developing nation, whatever you want to call it. You're living in a third world country pretty much, and the standards here are a lot different than back home. I mean, the hotels here, I've seen some hotels back here that are nicer than some of the ones I've seen back home, and I've seen expats go in there and start complaining about the hotel, or they're just prone to complaining. I've seen a lot of guys come in here and they just complain about everything, and man, if you don't leave that home, that's going to be a mess for you. It's just going to be a huge mess because it's not cool. It's not good, and nobody will want to be around you because you're bitching and moaning about everything. You know, you're going to become an expat Karen, you know, and that's what you're going to be, and it's just not a good thing to be. So when you get here, you just tone it down, bring it down a couple notches, and see if you can adjust. If you can't adjust, then maybe you have to go back home. But you know something, I'm going to get into this even further. We have guys here that show up here, they don't want to use tricycles, they don't want to use jeepneys, some for good reasons, some because they don't want to be cramped in there, they're too hot, they're this, they're that, and they want to use taxis, and if you come to a place with no taxis, it's not going to work for you. And all throughout the Philippines, most places, if you're not in a city, guess what? You're not going to have taxis. And Tracy Martirez City is not really a regular city here, and we don't have taxis here. We have people that you can rent and use for rides to go places, things like that. We have buses to go places here, and they're air conditioned, by the way, and they're not too cramped. We also have shuttles here, which kind of takes away that because both the shuttles and the buses have AC. But to get to the local markets and everything, either you have to do one of two things. Either you have to use the jeepneys, tricycles, or walk, or guess what? You're going to have to rent a car or whatever to go. And if you do that, you know, you're going to have to pay a little bit extra to live in this area. Tracy Martirez is a very cheap area to live, and that's why a lot of expats are coming here now. And most of the expats that are coming here love it here, that move here. They move here, they're fine with it, and they kind of like move about, and they get to know each other, and they visit each other every day, or they go out and do things, they plan things. And our little group also has little get-togethers, and it kind of takes away some of the pain of some of the things that go on around here because, you know, you have friends to endure things with. You know, I'm not saying this is a bad area. I'm saying it's an area that you have to get used to. As with any place, you have to get used to. I came from Lawrence, Massachusetts. Let me tell you something. If there was things that were wrong with the United States, that's where they were. It was not a great town to live in at all. You know, and when I come over here, in some ways, this was a step up because there was no shootings, very little crime here where I live. But back home, there was a lot of crime, a lot of bitching and moaning, and a lot of the woke stuff that was going on, and all the political garbage that was going on. People always had to have that in your face. Over here, we don't have that. You know, people don't talk politics over here too much. It's kind of enjoyable to come here and leave all that behind and just kind of move past all that stuff and all the family politics and all that. We don't have that over here. The family I have now is awesome. They're fantastic. I didn't have any of the infighting over here. We have our little feuds over here, but for the most part, you know what? I love my family over here a lot because of the way it runs. It runs a lot different than an American family does. And it's kind of nice having that over here. Not to say I don't miss my family back home, but it runs totally different here. We're closer, we're tighter, we do things for each other, we look out for each other more. I think back home people are too busy in their own things, And that's another thing that people think, like when they get over here, they're going to escape all the problems over here. Our standards are way up here. We got to kind of lower them, you know, and start. If you come over here with, you know, I'm not going to expect much, then later on you're going to say, wow, it's actually better than what I thought. You know, so come over here with that in mind, that you're coming to some place where it's totally different. Restaurants are different. You know, if you go to like a regular Philippine restaurant, street restaurant, it's not that clean. It's not that nice. You got to kind of get used to those standards versus the standards where we have back home, where you have somebody coming from the health department of the city or town you're in, and they're checking up on the place to make sure it's clean. Not that they don't have that in some of these towns, but you know what? It doesn't happen as much here as it does back home. You know, if you go to the big franchises, McDonald's, Chili's, you know, Texas Roadhouse, Outback, places like that, yes, they have much higher standards, and I think they have their own health standards there, because they don't want to get sued or have something get out, some food get out where it's bad, or people get sick from it, because they have a reputation and they have to worry about that reputation, because if it gets out that somebody got hepatitis or, you know, salmonella or something like that, you know, then that's going to damage their reputation. So those companies tend to keep their restaurants that much cleaner. You know, and the little mom and pop stores, they don't worry that much. You know, I'm sure some of them do and some of them don't, but the standards are not there. When you walk by and you see the way that they're handling food and stuff like that, it's not the way that we would typically handle foods. And like I was talking about with hotels, some of the hotels here, their standards are not up to our standards. You know, people walk into the hotels and they're like, I don't know if I like this place. Some hotels, the bathrooms are separate from the room. You have a shared bathroom or what have you. That's a little bit different than what we have back in the States, obviously. You don't see too much of that back in the States, if at all. You know, when you're traveling about, taxis and stuff, some of the taxis here, not the cleanest taxis, you know, and in New York they're not either. And the same way back in Massachusetts. But yet if you get an Uber or a Lyft back home, they're much cleaner than most of the taxis. You know, so it's something that you see back in the States, you know, that cleanliness. But over here, if you get a Grab or whatever, it's the same as getting an Uber or a Lyft. They're cleaner, they're nicer. Or if you get a private car company where you get like a limousine service or something, they have those over here. We are going to be talking about that later on in the future, guys. I have this guy up in Manila, and it's an American who started a company here, and we're going to showcase his place probably within the next 2 months sometime. We're going to vlog that. We're going to have him on talking about his company up in Manila and how you can use it for him to pick you up at the airport, drive you around Manila if you need be. And it's more of a higher class place where you don't have to worry about a taxi cab ripping you off, or a Grab or whatever. You know, although the Grabs you don't have too much of an issue with around here, because Grab's pretty decent. You do have to worry about the taxis a little bit, but you know, you have to feel safe here when you're in the Philippines. You have to feel, you know, I understand that part of it, but lower your standards, guys, and just work with it. Okay, just kind of try to figure it out. You know, things are different here. People are different. Going to somebody's house, you know, you might going to somebody's house and you might not want to eat their food because you're worried about the way the house is, because you could be in a squatters area and you don't want to insult them. But yet sometimes I just tell people, I'm sorry, I just only eat American food, which I do, you know, and I'm just not hungry. I really don't want anything right now. I haven't been feeling too good. You know, just try not to insult people here when you're here, because if you bitch and you moan here at the hotels, you insult the people there that clean those rooms. And I've gone into rooms with guys, and the guys start bitching, and the room is spotless. They started complaining right away, and I've had multiple people do that, and it's just not cool, especially if the hotel manager or the hotel person is there with you, and you start complaining. They take that to heart. It's very insulting to those people that do that, and you don't want to insult the people here, because they're good, decent people, and they do good jobs, you know. So you got to kind of cool it with the moaning and complaining. I understand when you're going to McDonald's and they mess up your order, because I've had that happen many a time, and it's going to happen a lot over here with people. People are going to have orders messed up. We've talked about this many times. McDonald's, Burger King, a lot of places like that. I've had my orders messed up many a times. pizza places, they mess up your orders sometimes. Most of the time, the pizza places are usually pretty good. S&R has been pretty good, although they've lied to me a few times about the onions and stuff like that for the hot dogs. They tell me they have onions and then they don't. But overall, most of the time here, you're going to have to put up with certain things. When you order something and then you get your food, and then they say, well, if you ask them, well, where's my onions or where's my relish? They say, out of stock, po. And sometimes they do have it, but the lady or the waitress is just telling you that just to shut you up, to be quiet. You know, and I can understand where people would get ticked off about that, but sometimes you just got to kind of, okay, I'm not going to bother. You know, you're best off sometimes leaving the sleeping dog alone, you know, and just not even go there, because it's just the way it is here. You just kind of have to have a duck's back and move on from that. And I'm not, you know, a lot of guys are saying, well, you know, I'm paying for my food, you know, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but you know what? You don't want to piss people off in a restaurant because you don't know what they're going to do with your food next time you go in there. And I remember when I first come over here, my standards were a little bit high. You know what I mean? When I walked into McDonald's, and a few times I've yelled at people in there, because a couple of times during COVID, they had me and my girlfriend sitting in different places, but yet they had all these teenagers over in the corner all sitting together, and they took, when me and my girlfriend sat together, they said, sir, you can't sit at the same table with her because of COVID. So I saw them come over and they served these people over in the corner, and there was 4 of them sitting at a table, okay? And our table was a table for 2, so we sat there, but there was a table for 4 with 4 people sitting there. And they could have just pulled the table over and had her kind of corner her away from me so she could still sit there, but they didn't even pull the table over. They told her she had to move to a different table, which is kind of insulting to me because it's my girlfriend. Well, guess what? These 4 kids are sitting over there. So I walked up and started yelling at the kid. I says, you know something? I says, you got a lot of gall making me move, but yet you serve those 4 people over there in the corner, and you make me separate from my girlfriend. Like, what's up with that? You know? And the manager come out, and she was a little bit incensed too that the guy's not paying attention, because it's just a simple thing of moving the table over and moving my girlfriend over so she has her own table right next to me. It was that easy, and there was enough tables around, and they could have said something to those 4 people, the 4 kids there, but they didn't until after I complained, and then they had them break up and spread out. Which, you know, times like that, yes, you have to complain. You know, your standards should be high. You know, for something where they're doing something stupid, or they're not paying attention, or they could, you know, sometimes you have to kind of speak up on things like that. And I'm not telling people to be quiet totally. I'm not telling people to not speak up for your rights and stuff like that. I'm just telling you, sometimes if it's the little things, just overlook it. And sometimes you have to give people a chance too. I notice that when some people go into the hotel rooms, they say, well, it smells in here. Well, the AC is off, you know. When you put the AC on, it, you know, and I didn't smell anything in the room. Somebody had complained about the AC, and I've actually heard that a couple times now over at one of the hotels here. And that hotel is really clean. And I walked in the room, there wasn't any smell at all, and the guy started complaining, and I had another guy that had complained there too about the smell of the room. And I was like, there's no smell in here, man. I don't smell any, you know. I says, I can smell cleaning stuff in here a little bit, but I don't smell anything else, you know. And once you turned on the AC, the place smelled decent. It was a nice clean room. And you know, when you look, here's the biggest thing about standards here. This is the biggest one of all. Houses, okay? When I show houses over here, people go into these places and they're looking for $100 homes, but they're not. They have $400 homes in their head. Okay, it's almost like they're looking for a gated community. Even the gated communities, most of the places, they're not painted up, they're not cleaned up really decent. You have to go in there and do a little bit of work yourself to make it yours. But when they're looking at $80 and $100 rooms, they walk into these places and they're telling the owner of the place, hey, listen, I want to have AC in, I want to have an American standard toilet, I want to have a refrigerator in here. Sorry guys, I want to have a refrigerator in here. I want to you know, have the place cleaned up and painted. I want to have the doors all fixed. I want to have the rubber stops on the bottom. I want to have the rubber around there. I want to have the doors all varnished. I want to have a hot water heater. And they want all this for $80 or $100. Not going to happen. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm talking about, standards. You guys got to come over here if you're going to get one of these apartments, and you got to figure in your head, okay, if I put this stuff in, I stay here for 3 years, I easily get my money's worth and then some, because I'm saving that much money. But a lot of guys come in here, well, I'm not going to put in anything for the landlord so that they can keep it later on. I'm not going to do that, forget that. Well, you know what? 3 years later, your hot water heater is probably going to start breaking down, or your AC might start breaking down, or whatever. ACs last a long time, but that's the time that things start breaking in those things. They start, you know, you need to start doing maintenance and stuff like that. But you know, if you pay $600 for a 1 horsepower split type AC, you pay $650 or cheaper or more, depending on what kind you're getting, and you put it in there, I mean, and you stay in there for 3 years, it's $200 per year plus the cost of the electricity for the AC. How can you beat that? You know, so what if you leave it behind? Because if you rip it out, you're going to leave all those holes in the wall for the landlord, unless you fix the holes in the wall, which you can agree with. But I mean, if you want to take it with you, yeah, then you have to lug that big air conditioner with you wherever you're going too. And the hot water heater, guess what? It's about $150, maybe $10 to have it installed. $10 or $20 to have it installed. Big deal. You're leaving behind $150. The thing, after about 3 years, those start wearing out. Some of them last a little bit longer, some of them don't. You know, they tend to break down after a while. And you're probably better off with those, because of the way they're built, after 3 years replacing them anyway, because they become dangerous. You know, if those things break down and you get a shock or something off of those things, and those things are, the way they're built, you could get a shock off of those. So, and it could kill you. So be careful, you know, be careful what you're doing. Make sure, you know, even if you have it grounded, sometimes I would imagine that you could probably get a good shock off of that. You know, you need to be on top of stuff like that. But also, you know, you can make that place yours. You can put in cabinets and stuff like that. And granted, you're not going to be able to take those cabinets with you. But if you have cabinets handmade around here, they're not that expensive. You know, and you're going to have the place made for you. It's going to be to your comfort level. You know, yeah, you could go out to some of these places, some of these gated communities, and I've seen the apartments over at these gated communities, and yes, they have cabinets, yes, they have AC, but you want to know something? You want to know the truth? Here's the truth. Sometimes when you're paying $350 or $450 for an apartment that has everything in there, a lot of that stuff is junk. A lot of the ACs are old, broken. They don't want to put the money into fixing them. The beds are broken, the mattresses are shoddy, or they got bed bugs, or the AC is just out of control there. Some of them keep breaking down all the time. You have to call the landlord all the time to fix it. The TV is crappy. The hot water heater might be broken, or the water might not be right in there. You know, because some of these buildings are really high buildings, so they need a pump to get up there. And some of them, the people don't want to bother fixing the pump when it breaks down, so your water is really slow coming in. It's almost a trickle when you turn the shower on, or sometimes during the day, a lot of people are using it, so you're not getting much water flow out of your water. So you gotta try to figure out where you want to be. And some of these things that I'm telling you, like trying to find these high class places and stuff like that, believe it or not, are not that great, because you're gonna be calling up the maintenance people a lot of the time. It's a third world country. It's the way it is. People don't want to put money into things. Some places they're more high class, but you pay even more. You're gonna get more, you know, when you pay more. So, but some places that I've seen here in some of the gated communities, you know, there's a few over in General Trias that I've seen. You know, so the people move in there, and some of the people are unhappy with some of the places, or they're too small. But yeah, you have a pool, and then suddenly you find out that the pool is not that clean all the time. You know, or the guards are letting people in, or they're telling if you're dating or something like that, the guards are telling the girls, oh, he just had a girl in there the other day. You know, they're giving your information away. So sometimes it's not good to be in a gated community, because some of the guards, they have big mouths or whatever. And I'm not putting down these places, these gated communities. I'm saying that's the way it is sometimes, not all the times. There's some very professional gated communities out there, and there's some that are very lax, and they're not as nice. And some of these places are just not managed well. They're just not managed well. They have a lot of issues, and you have to get past all those issues. So that's why I tell people, get your own place, get your own house, get your own, and fix it to your standards. And then you're happy, at least in your house where you live, because that's the place you're going to be spending a good chunk of your time to sleep, watch movies with your family, or with your girlfriend, or whatever have you. and then at least you're happy as far as that goes. That's what you want. That's what you need. You know, you need a happy place that you can go to every day, that you know that you can go to. If it's miserable outside and it's raining and it's hot or sticky or humid outside, at least you have a place to go where you are happy, where the AC is low. When you're out and about and traveling, though, maybe you want to have a regular driver that has AC that'll pick you up. Hire somebody like that. That way you have all the stuff that you need to go places, and you're in AC, you're happy, you know, it meets your standards. But remember, as far as what other people own, restaurants, things like that, you kind of have to kind of lower yourself a little bit and kind of expect that it might not be the best experience. And you got to kind of deal with that to a certain extent. Speak up, but don't be rude. God bless, guys. Take care.